then Patricia has said, what skills do we need to get into this battery business?
Well, it's property development, Patricia. So it's exactly the same skill set as a property development. It's just property development. It's just a different thing. You know, like picture it this way, right? You can buy a piece of property and you can develop some houses on it, right? Most people think they understand that. No, I say think they understand it, because I don't think most people actually do. You can buy a piece of property and you can put a commercial building on it, you know, as we're doing with the trade park. Or you can buy a piece of land and you can put battery storage on it. It's exactly the same skill set. I'm a property developer. I'm developing it for battery storage. So I'll go through the planning consent and the necessary consents the same as I would with anything else. I don't see the skill set being one iota of difference.
Okay, yeah, you just have to, grow it. I know you don't, Paul, but it is something that I've definitely seen. I think there is something that I'm very much noticed about you over the years is you have a lot of these skill sets inherently. Obviously, you've worked extremely hard, as you've talked about. You've gone through and really invested yourself into business skills and growing yourself like that. But there are things that you, I think that other people have, and I think over time, especially talking to me, I think you've noticed that we don't all necessarily have those skills. But it's, I suppose, understanding which skills you don't have and working on them. And that's, you know, where you'd want to get, you know, somebody like you to help out, or whoever. But what I'm going to do now is just going to run through these questions, because we have got a few coming in now. So we've got one from Yuri says, and I can't really put them in any particular order now, if that's okay. So I'm just going to do them in chronological order.
Yeah.
What trends, opportunities, Paul, can you see with the coming election? Most likely Labour coming into power.
So it's interesting, you know, Labour are very driven by green, you know, green agenda. Sometimes they're more green than the Green Party. And we know that that's going to come into play. So we're going to say, right, okay, let's look at that. You know, how can we get involved in the green agenda? So that is things like battery energy storage. That is, as a property developer, that is things like wind power. That is things like solar power, etc. In terms of general views of Labour, it's not the most left-wing Labour Party that we've ever seen. Might be the most right-wing Labour Party we've ever seen. But just because we start off with one leader doesn't mean that that's the leader that's going to stay in that party, as we've discovered with many elections over the years. So we don't know what the next leader of the Labour Party is going to look like or what their agenda is going to be. What we do know is likely with Labour is that they're going to want to bring more things back to the state. So I would be slightly concerned if I at the moment, if I was involved in some of the kind of assisted living, etc., that the Tory government have thrown a lot of money into the private sector and said, we want you to look after people, and we'll pay you to do it. I do wonder whether Labour will have that same view, or if they will start to bring it back in-house or not. I think that we haven't seen a landlord-friendly government for a very long time, probably for 3 decades. We haven't seen a friendly government to landlords. Is a Labour government likely to be more friendly to landlords than a Conservative government? I find the Conservative government, unfriendly enough, and I suspect that Labour will be even less friendly. So I think we need to look at what their agenda is. You know, I'm one of those people, Emma. I am the person who reads the manifestos. If you ever wondered who reads the manifestos, it's me. And I look at where the manifesto is going, as I did in 2015 with the Conservatives, and say, I don't want to be in this sector anymore because they don't support this sector. So you look at the manifestos of every party, you look at the one that's most likely to succeed, and then you follow that manifesto. I've never believed in arguing with the government or the local council. I've always believed in working with them, not against them.
Yeah, that's what I've really noticed about you, especially when you talk about planning and things like that, is, and it's certainly something that I've implemented from your knowledge, is, yeah, absolutely. You might want to make a big song and dance and say this is not fair or whatever, but it's not going to get you anywhere. So you really need to see what exactly is that they want and then kind of answer that, so to speak, in the best way. Yeah, really, really incredible. And yeah, interesting. You're, you know, not the first person to talk about the kind of assisted living, supported living potential bubble that may burst in the, yeah, with the coming government. So yeah, we'll have to watch that space. So Arshad, hey, great to see you on here, has asked, how do you manage to build a debt-free portfolio? And just to clarify that, most of us are kind of trained to come into property and leverage. So you really are extremely unique. And it's really incredible what you've done with that. So yeah, Arshad is asking how you've managed that.
The answer is fairly simple. That was one of my goal sets. If you remember, when I sat down and wrote my first business plan all of those years ago, I wanted debt-free property. I come into property to own property. I didn't come into property to own debt. I come into property to own property. Now, one of the things about that, and it goes back to what I was talking about making chunks of money, Emma, right? If you're not making chunks of money in whatever your business model is at the moment, you're getting, you know, rental coming in slow and steady. It's very difficult to buy property because it takes you so long to save up to buy a property that the property has moved on in price. However, if you have got a business model as we did from day one, which was 1 part small drips of coming into the bucket and 3 parts big chunks coming into the bucket, then it makes a big difference. So if I go back to the story I was telling earlier on about buying the land for, you know, a few £1,000s an acre and selling it for 6 figures, we made over 500% profit on that deal. Over 500% profit. Now, you take those few £1,000s that we put in, that then turned into 6 figures, substantial 6 figures, that gives you the opportunity to go and buy things that you own, not that you have to borrow one.
Yeah, amazing. Yes, incredible. Okay, so from Robin, has said, afternoon, or Paul, when factoring in staffing needs and capacity building into the business, how would you go about facilitating full-time staff before the company has the ability to pay them a salary?
I'm a great believer in sweat equity. I'm a great believer in that if you've got a really good business idea and you've got a really good business concept, you can bring sweat equity in. So you can bring people into the business and give them shares as opposed to giving them money. What tends to happen with that is you get a much higher quality of person, no disrespect intended, because that person's already in a financial situation where they don't need your money every month. So they've got some kind of proven track record that they might be good at what they do because they're already earning money from wherever, right, that they can afford to give their sweat equity. Is this making sense to you, Emma?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Whereas if somebody comes to you, you know, and it's much easier to get somebody on your board of directors in sweat equity than it is to get a cleaner on sweat equity. Because most cleaners need the money every month. No disrespect to cleaners. But a board member perhaps doesn't. So it's that skill set and mindset and getting them to believe in your product. One of the things I've always been, you say I've got some natural skills and I would deny any of that, Emma.
I knew you would.
I've worked very hard to get any skill that I might have, right? And, you know, we took a business consultant into our business at a point in time where people said I couldn't afford one. And I said, I can't afford not to have one because I know where I want this business to grow to. So skill set comes, you know, from hard work, right? But one of the skill sets that I have is I can get people to believe in my products and my services. And one of the reasons for that is because I believe in them wholeheartedly.
Fantastic. Next one is again from Toyo, and this kind of, I mean, I've got a long list of questions and I'm aware of time, but this is going back to your battery storage scenario. And her question is, is it slightly easier to enter the market in a place like Scotland rather than other parts of the country, for example, London? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to answer that question like a politician, Toya. I'm going to answer a different question, right? When I first got involved in business, I had property, I had £40,000, right? And when I first got involved in business, I had £15, right? And it's hard to believe that that's turned into the types of figures that you're looking at today. And remember, this is only 3 of our projects. It's not all of our projects. And I never let location, i.e. where I lived, influence where I did business. If I was going to produce widgets tomorrow morning and I could produce widgets in Scotland and they cost me £10 a widget, and I could produce them in Birmingham and they cost me £2 a widget, then I would be doing business in Birmingham. A lot of people have this on my doorstep mentality. I'll tell you a great story. Many, many years ago, I was driving outside of a beautiful town called Stirling in Scotland, a beautiful place. And I drove outside the main kind of drag, and I'm driving along the road, and there was this bicycle shop in the middle of nowhere. And being a business consultant and being a business orientated person, I thought, that's a strange place to have a bike shop. And this was kind of pre-internet, if you like, or pre the prevalence of internet we have now. So I stopped my car. I don't ride bikes at all. And I went into the bike shop and I had a look round, and there's some wonderful bikes. And I got chatting to the guy behind the counter who owned the shop. And I said to him, so this your shop? And he said, yeah. And I said, I take it you're a bike. Oh, I'm a bike fanatic. I said, right. This is an interesting place. Stirling, for a start, is it's a reasonable sized town, but it's not gigantic. And you're on the outskirts of all the shops. Why are you here? And he said, oh, I live just round the corner, and this was convenient for me. And I smiled, and I got back in my car, and 6 months later, I drove past the shop, and guess what? It was empty.
Shut.
So I don't know whether you can hear this, Toya, or not, but your physical location has nothing to do with your business's location. And if you confuse the two, you might well have a closed bike shop.
And just, I'm just aware, are you all right just to have a couple more questions, Paul?
Yeah, I'm fine, Emma, as long as you are. It's 1:03. I know you're quite prompt on your timing, but I'm quite happy to take more questions.
Okay. So, I mean, you've obviously spoken today about these 3 different projects, and gosh, there's just many, many questions to ask. But with the, as you have the battery storage one, and that's the one that, you're really excited about. It's very new. You've had a huge amount of learning. But let's say going back a year, and I may even be answering my question, but going back a year, this was totally new. This was a new venture, and it is, inherently a new thing. How did you decide that it was okay to spend, 140 grand on this? Had you already pre-vetted this model? What is required? It's, I've seen a few things, but certainly, what made you decide to go forward? So is there a path that you would go through to ensure that this is the right deal for you? Because I know you haven't mentioned, but I would presume over the years there may have been a few deals that haven't worked so well.
I think that real success in business, I think you can, so let's define no success, some success, real success. Yeah. No success is I tried something, it failed, I went back to my day job.
Yeah.
Some success, I've got 2 buy-to-lets and they bring me in some money, but it's not going to change my life and it's not going to replace my salary. And then real success is I'm going to make a real business out of this, that we don't think in tens of pounds or hundreds of pounds or thousands of pounds. We think in millions. And just let me caveat that, right? I didn't start my life off as a millionaire. I started my life off as a thousandaire. What do I mean by that? I looked at businesses when I had nothing that I could make thousands from. So my aspiration at that point in time was to be a thousandaire, not a millionaire. And I think some people get too caught up in the big picture and not enough in the small picture. But to get to that success, where it's a thousandaire, that point where it can become your job, that point where it can become your career, that point where it can become a real business that you can sell on, that takes risk. And the difference between an investor and an entrepreneur is an investor wants to make sure that the first and foremost thing they do is protect the money that they have. They don't want to lose a penny. That's an investor mindset. An entrepreneur stroke business person's mindset is, I am willing to risk everything I have to get everything I don't have. I am willing to risk everything I have today to get everything I don't have today. They're two different mindsets. And if you go into something like battery storage or property development with an investor mindset, how do I protect the money I have? I would suggest that you fall into either the first or the second category. But if you're willing to risk everything, then you will likely succeed. But more importantly, you will be a true entrepreneur.
Wow, that is amazing. And I presume Margaret Ann is in complete support of that as well?
On occasion.
Because there's always two sides to a business. And
so just to explain to people in the audience, Margaret Ann is my wife and also my business partner. I wouldn't be where I am today without the help of Margaret Ann. We are two very different people. Margaret Ann, I left school at 12 with no formal education. Margaret Ann went on to university and got a very good degree from one of the best universities in Scotland. We are very different people with very different skill sets who don't always agree on the next move forward. And I think inside of a business, that is very healthy. Inside of a marriage, slightly less healthy, but inside of a business, very, very healthy. The one thing I will say is that if I am very determined I want to do something, or Margaret Ann's very determined she wants to do something, both of us will follow the other one's desires.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you. Arshad has asked a question. These deals are hugely impressive. What's been the best deal you have done?
Marry Margaret Ann.
That's a great response.
Best deal I ever did.
I don't know if Arshad is married. We'll have to.
Arshad is indeed married, yes. And I've met his wife and he's as privileged as I am. So yes, marry Margaret Ann, best deal I ever did.
Okay, well, that's a challenge. That's going to be another session on how to choose the right partner, whether it's life or business. I suppose that's a very key one, isn't it?
So, any more questions?
No, not in the chat, but I suppose we have obviously gone over hugely. But the best thing now would be to cover where can people sort of follow you, find you, if they're interested in consulting, how can they get hold of you? Anything that you know people can come to you with.
Well, I'm not big on social media. I do a bit of Clubhouse, and I'm on Facebook. Margaret Ann put me on LinkedIn, but there's no profile or anything there yet, because I don't really use social media that much. You can find me on Facebook, and you can also find me on Clubhouse. They're about the two. If you're seriously interested in, kind of following on from this in terms of consultancy or getting involved in any of the things we're doing, then I'm sure if you kind of contact Emma, who's all over social media, she will quite happy give you a very old-fashioned thing called my telephone number, and we can talk like real human beings. So I'm sure my age now, Emma. So can I just round up with one thing?
Please,
and I made this point at the beginning, and despite the fact I made it, I want to make it again because I don't think enough people heard it. I didn't show you these projects to impress you. I don't want it to be the Paul show. I want to impress upon you that I'm an ordinary bloke. Listen to me. I left home at 15. I had £15 in my pocket. I'm severely dyslexic. I left school at 12 because me and school didn't get on. I have 2 arms, I have 2 legs, and I have a head. And most of you are qualified. Most of you have the same skill set. And even some of you who don't have that have what I have as well, which is a brain. And it's that willingness to use the brain differently than everyone else, to think outside of that stereotypical box, to decide I'm going to have a me business, not a me too business. If you look at Amazon, that chap didn't sit in his bedroom thinking, I want to be just like Woolworths, because Woolworths isn't here anymore, but he is. When you think about Bill Gates, he didn't think, I just want to be like Remington and make razors. All of the people who have been really, really successful have not copied other people's business ideas, but come up with business ideas of their own, or at least come up with their own angle, their own new way of doing it, their own way of being different. Because every good business has one of 2 things. It either has a USP, a unique selling point, or it has a differential, something that defines it as different than everybody else. And even in my consultancy, I choose to be different than the vast majority of business consultants, because that difference is what makes my clients, I feel, more successful. Back to you.
I totally agree. Having experienced you within these platforms, but also seeing you firsthand how you deal with a project is quite remarkable. So guys, I know a lot of you are have absolutely loved this session, and it does need quite a lot of going over again. So I have been asked a number of times, is this recorded? Absolutely. So this has gone live in LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We do also afterwards, put it out into YouTube again. We also shorten it as well. So there's multiple elements that if you've only got sort of 10 minutes to view. So please do come back and go back over this again from any of those platforms. And again, Paul, thank you so much for your time. We've had so many people really appreciating what you have said, and some that you know and some that you probably don't. So again, thank you so much, Paul. And we'll look forward to following these projects and hearing, where you exit, how it's gone. And cannot wait. Thanks again, Paul.
One thing I will say is, as this is going up on YouTube, guys, Emma puts a lot of effort into this. If you do watch the YouTube, please kind of, become a subscriber to Emma, and also if you can comment on the YouTube as well, then not only will that be interesting for me to see the comments and perhaps answer them, but it'll also be good for Emma as well, because the algorithm works in such a way that the more you interact with YouTube, the more that you like, the more that you kind of become a subscriber, and the more that you kind of comment on each individual YouTube video, the more that Emma will get exposure, and this particular kind of one session will get exposure, but it will bring exposure to Emma generally. And I think she puts a lot of time and effort into these things, streaming them on all of these different kind of ways. So if you could go over and help our YouTube channel, I think she would really appreciate it. Subscribe, press the bell, and also comment on the YouTubes as well.
Amazing. And just a final one from Toyo. Paul, delivering gold as usual. Many thanks for your time, and greetings to Margaret Ann. So we will shut it there. And thank you so much, Paul, for that. Take care, guys. See you next time.